What up, dudes? It's Gaz, and welcome back to the Warframe video. So, last day of 2022. 2023 starts in a few hours here, and to kick the year off, I'm going to be doing a list of things I think that DE and Warframe need to have changed in 2023. I made a video very similar to this at the beginning of 2022, and looking back at it, a few of the things that I asked for actually did change and happen, but also a couple of things on this list are the same thing from 2022. Specifically like armor reworks and stuff. So we'll be going over that briefly today. It's a top 5 list of the 5 things I think that DE and Warframe need to change in 2023. I hope you find the list fun and helpful, and of course have a good new year and all of that. We are going to be live tomorrow with some more Warframe, doing the weekly reset on stream and all that, so I hope that you guys stop by and enjoy the content on the channel. Alright, so we're going to start off with this top 5 list, going from least important to most important. And the first one, the least important, but probably honestly pretty important, is this guy over here. Baro Key Tier, as he refers to himself. I seriously think this guy needs a refresh in some degree. He's been in the game since like 2016, and they have not made changes to this guy since the Sands of Inaros. Actually, there's an Inaros Prime quest. You come here as Inaros Prime. That was whenever Inaros Prime came out. So since when Inaros Prime came out, he's had basically nothing, and we've gotten, sprinklings of new terrible items like the Class of 10-0 poster. Like, is anyone actually clamoring for, is this exciting Baro to anyone? It's not. It's not exciting Baro to anyone. And every couple of weeks, they're bringing, Master's Theodolite armor set and stuff like that. So I think, and I've made a video on this before in the past, I'll link that in the description. I think that Baro needs a new type of loot, new evergreen item. Right next to this Master Theodolite armor set, every time Baro shows up, give him some new type of loot, like a universal forma, or a everything booster for 3 days. Or whatever else you can think of, like a Riven stat locker. Something that makes Baro Katir worth coming back to the game for every 2 weeks, because he's not here every weekend. He's here every 2 weeks for 48 hours. And the way he is right now, Baro Katir is nowhere near exciting enough to make people come back to even bother signing into the game for this. Did you know that Baro Katir had basically no new Prime mods in 2022? I'm not even talking about Prime mods. I'm talking about he needs something that's reliable. He's always going to have this. It's going to always be worth signing into the game every other weekend to go and get this thing from Baro that only Baro has. Or it's a very rare item that Baro will have, something. So I think Baro needs a refresh. He's been, in the same state he's been in for a very long time. And it's boring. He's underwhelming, he's boring, and he is, getting a little bit stale and moldy at this point. So that's number 1, or rather number 5, the least important on the list. Maybe next time Baro will be not as pathetic and worthless, but I am not holding my breath on that. But I sure do hope that does happen. It doesn't even seem like it would be something that's very hard to do. It's like, okay, every time Baro's here, universal forma. It's an expensive thing to buy. It's a big ducat sink. It's a big, credit sink. Whatever they want to make it a sink for, that's something they could do. All right, moving on to the next one. It's going to be something that is actually a very recent addition to the game, about 3 or 4 months ago. It's going to be Archon Shard, Tau Shard crafting. Now, I know this is going to be something that is pretty much, it's a very small percentage of people who would even know about this being a problem. But if you have been not maybe paying attention to the game as much recently, or maybe you recently came back after a year or 2 break or something like that, I'm going to give you the quick rundown on what a Tau Shard and what an Archon Shard are in the first place. So we are back in our ship in the Helminth section. And what we're looking at right here are Archon Shards. Here's the Helminth button right here. You can change the abilities around and all that. Archon Shard is a new thing added in September of this year. So we have different types of things. Now these are coming from my weekly reset. If you watch my weekly reset videos, different Archons are going to drop these different Archon Shards. Now let's start talking about the problems with this. These shards will give you additional stats for your build, which is all nice, well and good. But there's actually a just strictly better version of these called Tau Shards. Now, for example, this 10% ability strength shard is a normal non-Tau shard. I have a Tau version right here, which is just going to be strictly better stats. It's going to go from 10% ability strength to 15% ability strength. And of course, you can stack that 5 times. Now, and that's a similar situation for all these other ones too. This casting speed shard becomes 37.5% casting speed. This energy shard becomes a 75 energy shard, and so on and so forth. So here's the problem. There are two sources of these Tau shards, or rather, there's one source of the Tau shards in the entire game, the strictly better version. The normal shards come from two places, but let's talk about specifically the Tau enhanced version right now. The Tau enhanced shards are a once per week lever pull upon completing an Archon sortie boss fight. It is once a week, a weekly lockout. You can only do this mission once per week for loot. And like I said, these are strictly better. If you had every single shard as a Tau shard, there would be literally zero reason to run a normal shard. As you see right here, once per week, fight the Archon. This is available to you after the Veilbreaker quest, after the new war is completed. Now, here's the thing. You can get one from here. It's not guaranteed. You'll get a normal shard at least guaranteed. But also, look at this other loot. I got 8,000 Endo from a weekly. If you look at the daily version of it, it's 4,000 Endo is the... it's not even showing the Endo on here. Oh, there it is. 4,000 Endo is a uncommon drop. A weekly giving 8,000 and a daily giving 4,000 don't really seem fair to me. And additionally, going forward, or going even further, the normal non-Archon shard loot of this weekly is terrible. A 3-day booster from a weekly, you also get a 3-day booster from a daily, too. It's the exact same loot, but one's a weekly and one's a daily. It doesn't make any sense. So what a lot of people have been asking for is, like, we have a bunch of these normal shards, because the RNG of getting this is a 20% drop rate once per week, like I said. Of course, you could do the call missions, which a lot of people despise. Doing the call missions to get stock and stuff like that to buy one normal shard per week from the new NPC, like, shop guy Chipper. That does not have a chance to be a Tau shard. So as far as you getting that enhanced Tau shard, your chances are extremely limited per week. So a lot of people's, idea for making that not as terrible, because, it really feels like if you're a dedicated player, you're pretty much you are bottlenecked. You have as good of a chance of getting a Tau shard as an MR32 as an MR5 that just showed up to the Archon hunt for the first time. So I think what they could do is make it where if you have excess normal versions of shards, let's say we're looking at the power strength shard. If I have like 2 or 3 normal power strength shards and I want to make the enhanced Tau version one, there should be a way you can convert into the enhanced version. So for example, I sacrifice 2 normal shards, and then I get a guaranteed super red shard after that. And maybe it's like a once every couple of weeks. Maybe even make that the thing Baro has, right? Combine the last 2 things together. Baro's going to show up every 2 weeks. He's going to have a Archon shard enhancer, and its crafting requirements will be like 2 normal shards and a bunch of credits and Kuva and stuff, and that turns those shards into a Tau shard. And we're not going to be... DE wants this to be a long-term grind. It still would be a long-term grind. We're already bottlenecked beyond belief. 1 chance at a Tau shard per week. And then if we were to go down the Baro route, once every 2 weeks, you can turn your 2 shards into a Tau shard. You're netting, you're going negative on shards because you're technically getting less shards, but also you're getting the shards you want, the better version. Because anyone that has the better version, it's like, I don't want to go back to the normal shards. Look at my Varuna ability I showed you. Having normal shards feels bad when you know that Tau shards are a possibility. So I could go on about that all day long. There's multiple ways they can handle it, but I do think that sacrificing weaker shards to get a better shard is something that a lot of people have considered, and I've considered it too. So that's number 4. It probably could be a little bit more important depending on how much you actually care. It just the Archon shard system is so bad altogether that yeah. All right, moving on to the next one, number 3. So we're about halfway through the video now. We're going to be going over it. Now, this is actually funny. I had this exact same point on my 2022 list of things I need to improve for Warframe, and it didn't actually change. Although I guess we got Archon shards so we can have more health and armor. But yeah, health and armor in this game are not very useful, especially at high levels. If you ever wonder why people are referring to Inaros as not being tanky or good, well, the good part is because his abilities are bad. But as far as Inaros being tanky at high levels, it's because health and armor falls off. If you look at the gameplay footage on screen right now, I'm not worrying about health and armor at all. It's all about that rolling guard and that shield gate. If I can get my shield regenerated fully, I am basically invincible. There you go. I jump on that guy, invincible, not even any danger at all. So, health and armor in this game, I don't know what they need to do to it. Maybe just make it where, if you have over 1,000 armor, you have an invincibility, an iframe when you get shot at by an enemy or something like that. So if you had 2,000 armor, it'd be 2 iframes per health bar until you fully heal. Health and armor in this game, if you're playing, not just base base mission levels are underwhelming as can be. And a good example of that is just look at Inaros versus Grendel. You'd think Inaros, it's like, we have so much overwhelming health, we must be like a complete tank lord. For normal missions, sure, I have 10,000 health in my Inaros build with about 1,000 armor, but look, he has no shields at all. The fact he has no shields makes him the least tanky frame in the entire game at high levels. We look at the same frame as Grendel, or similar situation with Grendel. This man has 19 shields and 3,700 health. You don't understand how much more tanky Grendel is than Inaros because of that shield. We fully regenerate our shield by casting an ability using augur mods, and that is complete invulnerability until our shield is not regenerated. Since we have like basically no shields, we can shield gate very, very easily on Grendel, and he is more tanky than Inaros. But did you know that Inaros is actually getting a rework some point this year, confirmed by the DE devs on their primetime stream? I think this is the perfect time. If you're going to be reworking Inaros, it's a perfect time to take a look at, the health and armor stat of Warframes, not of enemies. I mean, they're not very tanky nowadays anyway, but as far as health and armor of Warframes, I think that could definitely use some changes in a better direction. Make it where modding for health and armor is actually technically a thing that people might even consider doing, besides just, like star chart missions and like the first 15 minutes of Steel Path. Even then, if you find a Blitz Maximus on the Steel Path, even Inaros can get one shot with 10,000 health. He will. I think it takes him about a half hour, 45 minutes to start getting one shot by every normal enemy. But yeah, that Blitz Maximus right there. If that was Inaros, that Fire Pillar could have killed me. So maybe take a look at Inaros in 2023. Take a look at health and armor in 2023 along with Inaros. All right, that is number 3. It probably is less important than I actually consider it, but I really feel like health and armor are a big waste of potential with how many sources of health and armor we have and how underwhelming and useless they really are. All right, so let's get into the last 2 here. And now this is probably going to be the most important to a lot of people, but to me, I think we got cross play, kind of. Pretty much, I think DE is referring to this as cross play being fully out, even though it's pretty buggy sometimes. But cross save is next on the horizon, and I definitely do expect it to be out in 2023. Not sure at the time frame at all. Preferably before TennoCon, but they might push it out around TennoCon to get the hype, really ramped up a lot. So cross save is important. We need information on cross-platform trading, cross-platform clans, things like that. And I also, since we're talking about this, cross-platform stuff, I think that DE needs to fundamentally change. I don't know, this is probably extremely, extremely hard for them to do. But, I made a video complaining about crossplay the other day and how basically public matchmaking is not reliable anymore because it's not a very reliable situation. People are DCing all the time, and different platforms are not loading in time by the time that PC players or whatever platform are completing the mission. If you load into a mission that is already completed on cross-platform, it will just basically kick you out of the mission. So I think that maybe they could do something to make it where, okay, you do not if you are doing crossplay and there's other platforms, the mission will not start until everyone is fully loaded into the mission. Because the way it stands right now is this: if I want to do a speed run Ukko Fissure, and let's say I'm playing with a launch generation PS4, a Switch, and then maybe an old Xbox or something. Those guys or those players are not going to load into the mission before I'm able to kill everything with Titania or whatever. So if they were to change it where I can't even move in the mission as the PC player until the slower loading platforms are in there, I think that would be appropriate. That would mean that no one's getting screwed out of. I'm not feeling like a jerk playing the mission too fast. I'm not having to wait around for people because I'm just waiting in the loading screen for the mission to even load in the first place. I think that could be helpful to alleviate some frustration from the DCs and all that kind of host migration stuff from crossplay. But I know that probably wouldn't solve everything. But yeah, we need more information on that. I can't really talk about it too much because I don't know that much about it besides what we've been told. So let's go into the last thing, and this is actually not as copium as it sounds. The last point on the list is going to be endgame raids and dungeons. If you ever sign into Warframe and you're like, I don't really have much to do, the biggest things to do in Warframe right now, if you are a late game player, is you sign in on Sunday, you do your Archon mission and your call mission, maybe not even the call mission if you're sick of those. You get your once per week Archon shard, like we talked about earlier, and then you F off and go to another game, or just don't play this game, or do something else. There is not much, content not lots of exciting content to play. Eidolon fights have been out for like 4 or 5 years, maybe even longer. Spider Fight is, I only do that during double credit weekends, basically. And the new stuff is the Archon Hunt, which we said earlier is a literal once per week lever pull for loot. Now, here's a little bit of a bright side here. DE did say in 2022 they were looking to see what they can do with raids in 2023 in Warframe. And I'm really, really hoping that we get some exciting stuff there. I'm talking like, I know the man-the-wall raid boss was probably not a thing lore-wise, but, some exciting boss fights. Maybe throw some Void Angels in there as mini-bosses. Some new types of loot. Archon shards were a step in the right direction. Some actual brand new loot. I love that kind of stuff. And maybe if they don't want to make new types of loot, maybe just new versions of specific loot we already have. A buffed version of Arcane Avenger that works for status procs. A Molt Augmented that also gives range or something. Crazy ideas. Or maybe even take another step further where it's like basically make it where it's rivens for weapons, like built in, not even a mod slot. If you beat this raid, you can pick one weapon in your inventory to be an enhanced Kuva Void weapon version. So if I was to okay, I beat the raid, what weapon am I going to pick this week? All right, I'm going to pick the Soma Prime. My Soma Prime is going to get an RNG roll of some good stat permanently on it forever. Oh, would you look at that? I got plus crit chance. Now my Soma Prime is better forever. Types of things like that where you can personalize your account and differentiate yourself from others. Because the biggest way you can differentiate yourself from other players in this game is Fashion Frame and Rivens. Because a lot of the mods are just, standard issue. Everyone's got Condition Overload. Everyone's got Prime Continuity that ever unlocked it. So, ways to differentiate yourself, ways to get more powerful, ways to be having more fun. All these things add together, also in a fun, satisfying raid experience, hopefully, that builds on what we are good with, or what our, the strong suits of Warframe are. Don't make a raid where I'm standing on a plate to DPS a boss. Do not make Destiny raids. The old Warframe raids were standing on a plate. We play this game for the mobility. This game has the best mobility out of any game out there. And I challenge you to find one that has better mobility than Warframe and let me know in the comments. But capitalize on how strong our mobility is. Don't just copy pasta. Oh, stand on the plate to open the door. Oh, you didn't stay on the plate? We all died. That's what the old Law of Retribution raid was, and I don't want that ever again in Warframe because standing on plates is not what I play this game for. So, that's basically it. Hope you guys found this video fun, entertaining, and helpful. I'll do a check before we get into 2024 how we did. I have a feeling that most of this stuff will happen besides maybe the Baro refresh. I guess Baro is just doomed to be, underwhelming for the rest of time. But I do really think that since we're having an Inaros rework, it would be a good time for them to look into health, armor, and shield gating. And they did say themselves they'd be looking into doing raids this year, so we'll just have to see how that ends up playing out. Either way, guys, hope you have a great new year. I appreciate all the support. And yeah, I'll see you with more videos and streams every day. You guys take it easy, and yeah, peace.